Hello everyone, welcome back to Death Valley National Park. Got my buddy TJ Thorne right here, and we are currently searching for mud tiles. Right now, we have no clue if the tiles are even going to be here or if we'll even be able to find some, and I guess there's adds a bit of excitement to the shoot, right?
We don't know what we're gonna get.
A little bit of adventure. Can we find mud that's worth gold, or will we find mud that's worth mud?
Will the mud be a dud?
Will the mud be a dud? All right, so we haven't found anything yet, but we're heading out in this direction beyond the bushes a bit to see if maybe some are hiding in there. Confidence is still high. I'm sure if we walk far enough, we'll find something, right? So we found some tiles down in here, but they are not the best. Just dirty dirt with not a lot of interesting patterns or really a lot of cleanliness to focus on. So I'm gonna keep searching. We're gonna head this way and just see what else we can find. I'm just gonna keep walking until we can find something interesting.
And this right here is the reality of landscape photography, and some of what you don't see when I'm filming these vlogs. The constant wandering and searching, and frankly a whole lot of, well, nothing. When I started to get frustrated and almost wandered back to the car, I finally stumbled upon this.
I mean, I could have walked right past this, and that's kind of what I mean by you really have to search for some of these patterns. They're not going to be very obvious, and sometimes they're even pretty small. You know, you want to wander the landscape with your feet, but also kind of wander the landscape with your eyes. This patch right now is in shadow, so I don't even need to wait until sunset for, you know, the soft light. I can already shoot it with this open shade because it's kind of hidden by this bank right here. I think I'm going to use my 16 to 35 here, try a few handheld shots, and then if I feel like I need to, I'll switch on over to the tripod. But I definitely like to scout some of this handheld, sometimes even with my phone instead of my camera. I just find it a little bit easier. Once you plop down the tripod, it becomes tougher to move it around. But if you've got your camera free and you can kind of just wander around and look through the viewfinder, it's a lot more helpful. See if we can compose this. I'm trying to get kind of as far over above the mud tiles as I can. I'm going to give myself some breathing room with the ISO and flip that up to 500. And I'm going to do f16 to make sure I can get all of this as in focus as possible. And that leaves my shutter speed at 1/80th of a second. I'm just going to zoom in, make sure we're in focus.
So here's my first test shot. Definitely a bit messy in terms of the structure here, but I think at this point I was just excited to get out my camera and play around. I decided to try a post-processing technique inspired by my friend TJ by inverting the colors and tones in the photograph, and here's how that turned out. I love how the editing style here really allowed the image to take a completely different look. The textures were almost otherworldly, and I also really liked the deeper red tones that started shining through in this edit. Shooting these compositions looking straight down and shifting my aperture to f16 allowed me to get everything sharp here without having to do any sort of unnecessary focus stacking, which is honestly one of my least favorite things to do in post-processing. After this, I found some really cool flaky patterns to the right of me, so I decided to shift my attention, and here's what I shot. So this composition really caught my eye, and I loved the soft pastel colors here. I also went for a bright, high-key look for this one. Even though these flaky cracks were a lot less clean than the previous patterns, I felt like they still had a really pleasing, delicate structure to them.
Definitely one of the trickiest things about shooting this type of photography is making sure you have a nice, clean composition. And oftentimes that means I kind of slow down and take a look at the edges of my frame and see, okay, are there any distracting elements on the edges, like something that's going to take away from the composition or something that's going to pull the viewer out of the composition rather than into it. Let's venture out there more, see if we can find more mud tiles. All right, so after searching, I think we found not just mud, we found really good mud. Check this out. Look at all these different colors, different shades of brown. And I think this is going to be really fun to work with. I especially love the edge right here where the darker patch meets the brighter patch. So I think I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to mark this, shoot it, and then maybe we'll find even more.
One of my favorite things to do while pattern hunting is looking for different color casts that can then be accentuated further in post. In this image, I loved pulling out some of those cooler tones that allowed me to get that color contrast between the blues and the oranges here.
All right, so the sun has set beyond the mountains out there, and it's gotten a bit darker over here, so I pulled out the tripod. But what's nice about the sun being gone, and we're starting to see some of that reflected light from the sun glow hitting the clouds. Let me show you what this looks like. So you can't see it yet at about 16 millimeters, but if I start to zoom in here, look at those little bits of reflected light that kind of create these sort of wavy textures and patterns. It's really interesting, and I want to try and get a shot of this. I feel like maybe I'm a little bit far, so maybe it's worth getting a bit closer to the ground to see if we can get some of these patterns. And honestly, this is the biggest thing about shooting these abstract patterns. It's like you find the texture, the pattern you like, and then you might need to shift your composition a bit, and you start to see something else, and then you move again, and it just takes a lot of moving around to get the right shot. Hard to complain when you're out in a beautiful place like this photographing a bunch of mud. DJ, shooting cool stuff?
Oh yeah, some delicate cracks here.
This is the most hilarious way I've ever seen anyone compose a shot.
That's how I do. You know, it's not pretty.
It gets the job done,
It
right?
gets the job done.
This is just so cool, and it really goes to show that you cannot give up, because I was very close to walking out of here and not shooting these beautiful patterns, but it took a little bit of extra effort to find them, and I'm very glad we did, because these are super cool. I honestly, I've been here a bunch of times and I haven't seen patterns like this before, so I'm really excited to play around with these shots and see how they turn out.
Cracks weren't the only thing that I shot on this desert landscape photography trip, so now I want to show you a quick series of black and white images that I shot on the dunes that I am really excited about. I love how these photos almost look like dancing flames. To capture these, I used the exact same principles of photography that I've shared throughout this video for the cracks, really focusing in on little details and patterns rather than showcasing the overall scene. I also really accentuated the tones and drama here by going with a high contrast look in post. This photo series is a lot different from what I would normally shoot, but that made this even more fun and challenging for me. It's one of my favorite things to do on photo trips, especially when you've visited a place multiple times. Play around with different techniques, get outside your comfort zone. It helps to keep things fresh and helps you to grow as a photographer.
It's been an amazing day so far. It honestly has, and these are my favorite days, the ones that that take a bit more work, a bit more of a challenge. But when you finally get the shot, when you finally get that thing you were looking for, it just makes it feel so much better than, just stumbling upon a composition right away and shooting it. I mean, within these pictures that we take, we want a story to tell, right? Like that's one of my favorite things about shooting landscape photography is about the stories that you can tell through your work. And well, it'd be a pretty boring story if all I did was show up, shoot the picture, and leave, right? There's got to be something in there that makes it interesting.
And now here's just a few more images and video clips that I'm really excited about from my trip. Here's a photograph of the beautiful flooded Badwater Basin, which is also called Manly Lake. I went with a very simple wide-angle shot here, and then I did an exposure blend of 3 shots to get the dynamic range for the sky and for the shadow detail. Here's another series of photographs that I've been working on for my trip. These dune images were all shot after sunset with some beautiful soft glow. I went with an almost monochromatic blue look to these images, which I feel like really helped to accentuate the mood here. All of these were taken with my 100-400 telephoto lens.
All right, so it's getting pretty dark out here. I think we're gonna call it. Hike on back to the car, get some food. But a pretty good day. TJ, what'd you shoot?
I shot some delicate mud cracks and some windswept patterns, some pretty high-key stuff, really simple stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm into, but we'll see if any of it turns into a photo that makes it beyond my hard drive.
That is the ultimate test, right?
So in my opinion, the biggest challenge when it comes to landscape photography really has nothing to do with the location, the weather, the gear that you might own. It's all about mentality. And oftentimes when we can't find a composition that we're looking for, it can be really discouraging. And that feeling, at least for me, hasn't gone away regardless of how many years I take photographs. Whether it's my first day with my camera or it's 20 years in. The key is to fight through that mental battle and not get down on yourself. It would have been very easy for me to give up here and wander back to the car, but I would have missed out on such a fantastic shoot. And I think that's the difference between the mentality I have now versus when I maybe got started. Just know if you keep searching, you don't give up, eventually you're going to find the shot. And if there is a situation where you just feel burnt out and a little too uninspired to take a photograph, at least you're spending a beautiful day in nature, which is usually better than the alternative. So I hope this video gives you a little bit of inspiration to get out there, take some photographs, and most importantly, have some fun. With that, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.